Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
Okay, Alex, we want to welcome Alex Skorik, and he will be bringing us, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's in relation to the plasma science and his continued teachings, and we thank him so much for being present and keeping the boat in the right side up, let's say.
Okay.
So thank you, Alex, for being here and being a stable teacher for us. So thank you.
Oh my God, that's thank you so much. Yes, welcome everybody. This is the North American Corona team meeting on Sunday, another beautiful day in the universe. We are joining the teachings of the Kesh Foundation, trying to add to the teachings of Marin Devakol Kesh, is the father of the modern plasma science. And we're bringing together many languages around the world, and we're hoping to be able to add more badges to this plate here. We did start off this teaching at the impetus of the very, very strong Brazilian team. They've gone through a lot of turmoil, a lot of determination to make this happen. And we have extended this through the Italian team, and we're seeing the fruits of the labor there. And I will have some comments about the Spanish team. We're in the middle of the sessions there. And before I get into those comments, I would like to introduce everybody to, this is the Kesh Foundation Spaceship Institute presentation on plasma science. And yes, we're going to go into advanced understanding. Today's subject is Stacker. And my name is Alexander. I'm from Canada. It is August the 8th, 2021. And this is a presentation of the Kesh Foundation North American Plasma Education Series. And so obviously that includes the great countries of Canada, US, and Mexico, among others. And we know that we have a very strong Spanish community listening in here. As I said, we started off with the basic teaching. Terminology was very, very important. And as we can see, this remains of great concern, because we, as large as the Kesh Foundation is, it's still small in comparison to the number of people who haven't learned. And so we may be in a process where we keep spinning our wheels as we try and get new knowledge seekers on board here. So we need to welcome the new knowledge seekers. We need to reinforce the mature knowledge seekers. And we need to lay a path, a yellow brick road, so to speak, for the teachers that are coming, and we need new teachers. And they need to not only understand the terminology and, of course, use it in its proper context, but you have to have this depth of understanding to be able to teach. And this is one of the um, burdens of being a teacher. You really have to know what you're talking about, and that's very difficult when you're into new territory. And so we went in from the basic teaching to intermediate teaching, advanced teaching, and what I need to say is that all of that was really just basic teaching, because basically people wanted to have basic knowledge of the cups of life, because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and that's the number one thing. You know, we say if what's important is not important, then really nothing's important. And so we're in a life and death situation. But we need to move on, because as we build on the knowledge, we get into the basic understanding. And so we brought other context in, and we try and advance into intermediate understanding. And so we brought in some very important topics, I think: divergence, convergence, conversion, inertia. We're talking a lot about inertia now. And of course, we're going through transfer states through various dimensions. And we understand the link up with the GANs of oxygen. We talked about that last week. So I think it's very appropriate that we get into advanced understanding. So we introduced this class today with the Knowledge Seekers Workshop as of last Thursday. And we heard a snippet of it this morning. And that is advanced knowledge. We are nowhere near that in what we're going to be talking about here. We want to be able to move ahead, to understand there are some serious differences. And this is where I would like to comment on the Spanish community. We had an epiphany about 2 weeks ago, and we have this conflict where we're having difficulty understanding the difference between the plasma reality and the physical reality. And this continues, and it's reasonable for it to continue, because all of us have been educated in the physical reality. But there's a way and means of determining the difference. And there's a way and means of determining which state you're in, and you're understanding which state you're in. Now, that sounds kind of confusing. Yeah, it is. And it doesn't help when people start to use the wrong terminology in the wrong context. And so I think we've done all a great job in correcting that. The thing is that there are schools of thought that have said as much as they could within certain confines. And so it's put restrictions on the way we discuss things. And then sometimes we have to be a little bit, what I like to say, you have to walk a crooked road to go a straight mile. But we get there nevertheless. And so we need to move ahead in this advanced understanding so that we can see the difference, clearly the difference. And that's my hope in these next few weeks, to be able to discern the difference between the physical reality and the plasma reality. I'm sorry to be rambling on, but I think one of the things you've noticed is that I've been purposely avoiding the completion of the stacker unit, even though we introduced it a long time ago. And the main reason is because completing the stacker unit actually completes the link between the plasma and the physics. I'm talking about the plasma reality and the physical reality. And we need to review this, because we're not really understanding our physical reality. This is a problem. So the stacker unit is one of the ways to do that. And you can see some of the other subjects that we're looking to get involved with. So the key word is link. And well, what do we want to link? So there are various geometries and various dimensions, and each of these dimensions have various geometries. So some we can see and some we can't see, and some we can understand and some we can't understand. And so this is the whole part of the knowledge. I'm stating the obvious, I understand that. But the thing is, as Mr. Kesh pointed out on Thursday, the words and meanings as they relate to on this planet change with respect to going into different dimensions. So it's very important to understand these rules. So the basic rules are there's a magnetical and gravitational force, and this is a representation of energy in motion. So the energy being always positive, you cannot have nothing. Something is always something. So the energy is always positive. So understanding which direction it's going, we identify that as a charge. So that's where the positivity and the negativity comes in. And this is all part of the natural science. So we've had an opportunity for many years now to learn about the nanostate and the GAN state. And we understand that the energy that is imbued with these various states is increasing by orders of magnitude. And today, we're actually going to be decreasing by orders of magnitude. So yeah, it's a two-way street, you see. So the susceptibility is what's in question. So the susceptibility to what? The susceptibility between different geometries, the susceptibility between different dimensions, the susceptibility between plasmatic reality and physical reality. And then how fast do we travel? And the travel between what? Between these different energy states. And this is what we refer to as the dynamism. And the field strength and interaction of this dynamism is determined by the gradient, and we can alter that. So things can become more susceptible, but things can also become less susceptible. And like any good musician or any good artist, once you're given the tools, you paint the picture. And the picture starts with the universal order of creation. And so what this is important for us is that for the first time, scientists have the ability to not only explain the universal order of creation, but understand the creation of matter. And this is a good thing because it lends a purpose to our lives. Do we need to lend a purpose to our lives? That would imply that our lives are purposeless. Many of us, unfortunately, believe that because we have no other alternative. But you see, if there is a fixation in one point and an opportunity at another point, then there has to be a link between the two. And what is the structure of that link? And it turns out to be light. Light is the link, and the structure of light is part of what we talk about in book number 2. And we can do that in all dimensions. So this becomes really important because somehow, some way, the universe originated, and from there, things happened. And there was a sequence, it's a natural sequence. So when you look at a particular point in that sequence, you don't get to see the whole picture. And we've done that as scientists over the years. We've seen the individual points and we've extrapolated from those points. So there is no a real way to extrapolate from a point. And the reason being is that the past doesn't dictate the future. The past transfers to the future in the absence of an action. So the pattern of the past does not have to be translated into the pattern of the future. And so the way our our viewpoint with respect to the pandemic needs to be transferred from hopelessness to hopefulness. And that's what we're doing. That is the business, because the universe was created, and how the universe was created is it exists from energy. But this energy is always in motion, and that's what we say. So which way is it going? And that's the charge. And so when you look at the picture on book number 1, you see that there is a aggregation of 3 matters: matter, antimatter, and dark matter. On the picture on the right, you see an aggregation of 2 fields, both of which were constructed from matter, antimatter, and dark matter. And we are deciding to change those terms as well. And there's an infinity loop, and we're looking to understand that even more clearly. So to review in simple terms, there is a principal matter, and these are the PM ticks that are traveling through the universe, and they aggregate together into a force field. That force field is determined by an interaction. So the principal matter component of this force field interaction is the origin of the creation. So the energy is flowing, comes into a form of creation, matures into a maggrav condition. This is the essence of creation. So now your point of view comes into play. And when were you given that responsibility? You've always had that responsibility. So we're seeing a flaw in our education system where the responsibility is being shirked. And why is the responsibility being shirked? Because in many cases, the blame is associated with that. So we get into the blame game. That's not how we need to progress. That's not how the universe works. The universe works with the bringing together and the convergence of forces. So these forces are ubiquitous in the universe. There's energy packs traveling all over the place. This energy is diverging all through the universe and is coming together into these force fields. And these force fields, we're going to change their name. The antimatter is the principal matter, the dark matter is the transition matter, and the matter is the convergence matter. And they converge together into a plasma field. And there's a conversion that goes through this plasma field. We don't know what this conversion is, but it is a balance between the magnetical and gravitational fields, hence it's called a maggrav. And if we take that plasma field and interact with a lower field strength, that field interaction is inertia. The field strength interaction that we're most interested in is our physicality. We have a unique opportunity. Last week we discussed the periodic table of elements, and that indicated density. And then we're looking for a table of molecules. We don't have that yet. But if you put elements together to become molecules, then they should be more dense. But what we need is a table of molecular elements. In other words, plasmatic elements, a table of GANs. And we know that the GANs is less dense. So the difference between the plasma density and the physical density is significant. And it is so significant that we can't hang on to this molecular binding. We have different elements. And so this is a unique characteristic of the physical reality. And now it is created as basically, as we've discussed in the new atomic math, the neutron has the mass and is the part of the elemental structure. And in order to create a structure, there's a breakup between the proton and the electron. And the proton mass and the electron mass constitute part and parcel of the neutron mass. And what we've been missing, and where the science has been kind of coming to a dead end, if you will, is that we've been missing the mass of the PM ticks, which is the energy that's always in motion. And we're also missing the total mass of the substructure, which is the matter, antimatter, and dark matter. And so if we add all of these masses together, this is the totality. And this totality is all the energy levels that come together, and the susceptibility coming together is based on the balance of positioning. So in a diagram, when we look at our reality and to understand our reality, and why book number 1 is not book number 3, but book number 1 is because we've been looking at our reality from a physical point of view. So in our physical point of view is actually a form of nuclear decay. And so the neutron breaks down into electron and a proton, and the residue is the PM tick. So this is part of the decaying process. And this is a good thing because we tend to make a lot of mess on this planet, and we don't do enough to clean it up. We don't clean up after ourselves. So Mother Nature is taking care of business for us. Where our incompetence leaves off, Mother Nature's competence picks up. We see comparisons in various structures throughout the universe. And so we talked about various body-centered tetrahedrons. We see similarities to these structures. The organs of our body, the way they're structured and related in our bodies, that's something that we can see. The endocrine system, separate system. Then we get into gaseous systems like methane. We find that is carbon and with 4 hydrogens. But it's different from the Earth's crust, which is a silicon with 4 oxygens. And then we have ammonia, which is highly alkaline, and it is a nitrogen with 4 hydrogens. And then we have hemoglobin, which is blood, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Not as much as we will continue with that next week as well, but today is a grounding, and I'm using that word because it's a grounding is iron with 4 oxygens. It's an oversimplification of the hemoglobin, so for all the medical students, and don't jump on me all over that because I want to run to the comparison with the vertical people, and their hemoglobin-like structure is chlorophyll, which is magnesium with 4 nitrogens. Still a star formation. And of course, the energy that's in motion is part of the phosphate reactions, which are phosphorus with 4 oxygens. These are all body-centered tetrahedrons. They are in fact Maggrav reactors. And as they grow, they become face-centered tetrahedrons. And we've already discussed that, the difference between body-centered and face-centered. But to understand, the more reaction points you have, the more reactivity you have, the more energy points that you have. So we looked at the basic elemental structure in terms of our physicality, and those amino acids. But the amino acids are a combination of 4 separate elements, which for simplicity we call the cone structure, COHN, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen, and they form a tetrahedron, or more closely a star formation. And the reason a star formation is different from a tetrahedron is because there's a gravitational base and a magnetical point. And in between you have a dynamic plasmatic reaction. And so when we look at the body-centered tetrahedrons, and today I'm going to talk about the hemoglobin, which is basically your iron with 4 oxygens around. So the oxygens are all equal, and they are in the 4 points of a tetrahedron, and the iron is a plasmatic reaction in the middle. So this is a very key point, because we know how iron supplementation can really help an aquatic system. And for some people, that the best way to supplement the aquatic system would be then to throw some wire pads into the water to supplement the iron. So we have to understand that there's a huge difference between the physical iron and the plasmatic iron. And so we're still at the point where we're trying to differentiate the terminology that we're talking about. And so we are looking forward to introducing a new type of nomenclature where we can identify, is it a physical iron or a plasmatic iron? And we started to see that with the universal cup. And so hopefully what we're going to be having a lesson on that to see if we can come up with a convention so that we can talk about this in a little bit better manner. The basic convention that we do have, however, is the periodic table of elements. And what is interesting, I say interesting, so, is that all of these elements are part of us. We're all of these elements. So it would be really basically inaccurate to say that, you know, we are only this and only that. You know, we are 75% water. Yeah, we'll get that. But we are also interacting with a whole bunch of other elements. And there's a reason for that. And that's because we're on this planet. So our physicality is interacting with the physicality of this planet. And what we've done is we've manifested reality through this periodic table of elements. And there's a central point here, and that's the iron. And the key point about the iron is that the iron is our anchor. It's how we're anchored on this planet. And so this is the anchorage point. And so what we find that everything that is below in terms of mass, and in this case, the iron is a mass of, well, proton mass, sorry, a proton mass of 26. So all the elements that are below that are part of the plasmatic state. And as we go into the higher elements, they go through different stages as well, but they become more dense. So when we try and identify them as elements, then they have to be in their most stable form. And as we get into the higher elements, that becomes more and more difficult. And this is where we get into the nuclear science. And this is where Mr. Kesh's expertise really starts to flourish. We have tried to realign these periodic table of elements. We've taken the two columns on the left and moved them on the right because we have a certain column in here, which are inert gases. So as gases, they are elements, but they are inert, which means they have a zero net charge. And there's a left-hand side, there's a right-hand side, and so there's a balance point in between. And this balance point seems to be the focal point. So let's just zero in. Before I zero in, I just want you to notice that on the one hand side, we have magnesium and calcium. So the calcium is something that is very important to humans, and the magnesium is something very important to the vertical people. We're the horizontal people, the plants are the vertical people. And then we see another link up with the copper and the zinc, which are very essential for both the physical and the emotional building. And so when we look closely at the periodic table of elements, I want to also draw your attention to the relationship of chlorine and sodium, the combination of which we call salt. So sodium chloride is salt. And as you can see, the magnetical gravitational relationship of the sodium chloride is on the opposite side of the inert gases. So could we say that, you know, the left side is gravitational and the right side is magnetical? We'll carry on. So the point is, when two forces come together, they create a structure. and then more energy comes. And in order to maintain that, the structure has to grow. So we grow into, from the PM ticks into a three-dimensional structure, X, Y, and Z axis, and it's positive. We didn't say if it's physical or plasmatic. What we did say is that energy is bountiful, it's flowing everywhere. And the cost of going into a MAGRAV condition is a currency, and that currency is energy. So the currency in our society is money. When you make a transaction on our planet, in our society, the transaction currency is money. In science, in physics, in the universe, energy is a transaction currency. And it is basically a plasma field transaction currency. So the plasma field is energy as a plasma fuel. Well, does that also apply to the physicality? Yeah, you betcha, because we have a plasma state and we have a nanostate, a GAN state. These are all different energy states, and they all have a balanced field condition. And so what you're looking at here is the energy in motion throughout our planet. This is just a plasmatic representation of our planet. So we have an equator, we have the poles, and then we have the plasmatic field that goes around. And then we have the PM ticks that are coming. And this is the thing. It's like a generic description. PM ticks is like a car. You don't know what the brand is. You don't know what the color is. You don't know how fast it goes. Nanostates and GAN states, all kind of the same thing. Plasma states, kind of the same thing. So when we say MAGRAV, same thing. And so we have to understand that what we're talking about is generic things. So you take some seats, you take some glass, you take some rubber tires and a motor, and you could make a car. You never say the size of the motor, what is the glass made from, what are the rubber tires made from, and what does the car look like? And so this is the essence of creation. Forces that come together are like forces, and they keep coming together, and that's how they grow. And in order to keep these forces together, these fields have to rotate. So, you know, when we look at manufacturing, let's say on this planet in physicality, we bring the various components together. So, you know, you're not going to bring a truck tire to put on a car. So a car is going to want car tires, and a car is going to want car seats, and a car is going to want a car motor. So this is where the commonality comes in. But in the physical structure, we're taking something that is physical, adding something that is physical, and bolt it together with a force that is physical. So we're either going to weld that, or we're going to rivet it together, or screw it together, or clip it together, some kind of physical attachment. Well, in the universe, that attachment is a plasmatic binding. It's a plasmatic binding. And in order to retain that energy, because that energy is in motion, it has to be sent around in a rotating field. So that's the basis of the structure of the plasma. And then from there, it has to communicate with other energies. And so we call this a dynamic plasma interaction. And so there is an interaction point. There's a focal point for one plasma, and there's a focal point for another plasma. And it is these two focal points that interact. So fundamentally, we have a magnetical field and a gravitational field. We have to have both in order to create a MAGRAV condition. It is from this MAGRAV condition that you can do giving and taking. But we didn't say giving and taking to whom or from where. It's just energy in motion. And so to have this energy in motion, it has to go into a field in order to manifest. So we look at the structure of the electron, and because of the size of the electron, it is magnetical. And then we look at the size of the neutron, and because of its size, it is gravitational. And as I say, people have difficulty understanding the difference between an electron and a neutron. So by putting them together, I hope you can see clearly the difference here. The point being is that something is causing the difference here, and we're not seeing it. What we see in our physicality is, well, we'll see two things and they look the same, and somehow here are two circular magnets, and I put them on a towel and I scrunch the towel together, and then I release the magnets, and boom, they split apart. There was a force field that was acting on that. So as kids, we've always played with magnets. It's easy to understand. There's a magnetic force field of repulsion, but it didn't continue repelling. It stopped. At some point, it stopped. So we know that when we look at 2 points and how they're together, that there is a connection, and we call that repulsion, but it stopped, which means it was balanced off with a field of attraction. But that attraction was equal to the repulsion, and the distance between the two is the balance point. And so this is the essence of dimension building. And then we can build dimensions in any dimension. We can build dimensions in any dimension. Okay? And depending on the dimension that you're building these dimensions, you have certain geometries. So in our periodic table of elements, we have geometries. We have shapes, physical shapes that we can see of a rigid structure. But when we get into a plasma, it is not rigid. It is continually repositioning. However, fundamentally, to maintain a plasma field, you do have your x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. And again, we didn't say how strong they are, and we didn't say where they are, and we didn't say which dimension they are. These are just planes by axes. So each plane is different. The x-axis is rotating, the y-axis goes through the poles, and then how big is large? I don't know, but whatever it is, it's a z-axis. But as we've seen, that is only half the picture. And the reason it's half the picture is because it's the easiest to understand, but that's not the way the world works. The world is working with plasma fields interacting. And when we have two fields that are of the same polarity, then they repel. So now we can understand that we can change the polarity by simply flipping things around, and we've now created a force field of attraction. And so when we look at a summary of the natural plasma terminology, we can extend from the axes and understand that there's a rotating field. This rotating field is transmission. The polarity is the y-axis. The polarity is transition, because you're cutting across lines of transmission. And then you have field strength. This is your transmutation. But what we've been discussing in the last few classes is that there is a difference between the transformation of energy, and I call it transportation. And the reason for it is because our bodies are our transportation mechanism on this planet. So in other words, there is a transformation of field strength that is a substructure to the physical transportation of our bodies. In other words, we're talking about two different transmutations. And all of these, the substructure, we call it plasma. That's what's at the core of the plasma. and that maintains a position. And then it will reposition by engaging another plasma, which we call interaction. That interaction is a dynamism, and it creates a dynamic plasma. I'm trying to repeat the teachings in different sequences so that the teachers become comfortable in explaining to the students, because all of this is dealing with energy and motion, and energy and motion always has a charge. And then it's easy for us to understand, well, relatively easy for us to understand our physicality. But, if we don't get that right, it's hard for us to relate to the geometry of soul dimensions or the geometry of emotions. And it's the emotions which are part and parcel of the co-creation. So co-creation, well, so our souls are also part of the co-creation. So we find that it's a lot easier to transcend into higher energy levels where we can do co-creations. And when we get it, so these are different ranges that we're talking about. So we can transcend into higher ranges. And so when we put a map of, our point of view or the Earth's point of view, and we understand that what we need to talk about is our point of view, because we're the students, this is our subject. So we are the gravitational souls. And what we have to understand is, how did we get this physicality? So there was a substructure that was transforming and converting into GANS state. And we are bags of GANS. And as we know, GANS has an affinity to the emotional context. So there's an emotional link between our souls and our physicality. And this is the conversion point. But this conversion point can be transmission, or it can be transition. And the next level down is into the transportation into our environment. And within our environment, we can transport ourselves. So within our environment and within our physicality, and then we can do a lot of things in our physicality as well. These are all skills to learn. So when we first learned about the plasma science, we had to identify the different energy states and understand that there are different energy states and how they relate and how they interact. But fundamentally, what we discovered is we could have higher energy states. Well, we've always had higher energy states because we are higher energy states. So this whole notion of wanting to transcend into higher energy states, we are higher energy states. The transcendence is the awareness that we are higher energy states. We're the dynamic principal matter, okay? But we're interacting with other states. And then we find that there is a bridge that we have to cross over to go from the non-tangible to the physical. And this is the motion from the gravitational to the magnetical. And so we found that that was what was inertia. And the inertia allowed us to do the transformation. But one transformation is into the capital M matter state, right? This is our physical, this is our plasmatic matter state. Then another form of inertia transforms us into our transportation vehicle, which is our capital M matter state, our body, and our body understanding with the other physical states, which we understand in the transferring of energy as heat and electricity. And the way we move things around is with our feet. And so we go through various ranges. But, when we go, we have to understand it's in context with this planet. It could be in context with any other planet. Now we know the surface of the planet is round. And so when we drew the lines, the tangent lines, and then the perpendicular lines, and we find that there's a convergence. In other words, there's a convergence to the lower energy states. And it is our convergence. We are in a higher energy state, and we are converging into a lower energy state to marry to the lower energy state of the planet, which is created from a higher energy state of its plasmatic essence. So there's a blending of our energy conversion with the Earth's energy conversion. So this is where we are capable of having our transportation. And that transportation, we can transition to various ranges by going up and down. So we can go up over mountains and down the mountains and into the water and deep into the sea and up and over and from continent to continent. But when we do continent to continent, that's transmission. So we go along the ranges. So we have a choice. This is our basic dimension on this planet. And all of this is the basis of charges in motion. So now, you've heard all this before. You say, well, how is this part of the advanced understanding? The advanced understanding comes in understanding, are you in the physical reality or are you in the plasmatic reality? And, you know, double talk is all fine and dandy for entertainment. But this is not the way the universe operates. It's crystal clear. Energy is in motion, has a direction, it's negative or positive. The negative gives, the positive takes. And if it takes and gives from itself, that is binding. But if it takes and gives to something else, that is flowing. And so when we look at the principal interaction of energy, first of all, energy is always in motion. And second of all, it's a two-way street. And so when we look at the plasmatic representation of the Earth with its X, Y, and Z axis, in order to create the mag-grav condition, that energy has to be binding. But in order for it to exist, it has to exist in a relationship to another mag-grav condition. So whichever mag-grav condition you're looking at has to position and reposition itself to another mag-grav condition. And it is that energy that is flowing in between is also plasmatic interaction. And so this is how the universe is created. You have an origin of the universe, and then from there, there's a flowing of energy, and then it's created into more. So this is a life wants to live. This is the essence of the universal transfer of energy. And our little red tiny dot there in the small part of man's universe, that's our little tiny perfect world. And there's a reason why it's a tiny perfect world, is because we don't understand the definition of matter. We're so confused. So we're using the same words in different contexts. So hopefully we can correct this, but in the meantime, the convention is small m matter is the old science, capital M matter is the new science. But the fact of the matter is that matter is a manifestation of energy. And that manifestation is binding of the energy. The fact of binding is creation. So manifestation is creation. And it all comes from energy. So energy binding is creation. Okay, well, how binding is it? Well, in the physical state, it is the most binding. It is the least energized. It is the most dense. That's why you can touch it, you can see it. But in the plasmatic state, which is a substructure of the physical state, you cannot touch it and you cannot see it, but you can sense it. And so this is a manifestation of the light matter. And when we're saying the light matter, we're talking about light. So when we looked at the basics of the nano state, and we've seen that the nano layers in themselves form star formations. And because of the structure of the nano layers on the, let's say you have a copper wire and you've nano-coated it with 30,000 nano layers, you'll find that there are gaps in between. And so we don't know which way is up, and it doesn't matter. What matters is the relationship of the different nanopoints. And the nano points have nano gaps, and they create a star formation. And then these star formations link up. But interestingly enough, if you have one star formation and you add it to another star formation, you get more than two. And then you can add more. And this is why we find that as we continue to add these nanostates, they become a superconductor at room temperature. So that's fine with your nano-coated wire, but when we get into protein, and when we've taken a star formation, which we call an amino acid, if we do the same thing, when we get more than three, they fold over. And so this is the beginning of a protein state. And this folding over aligns these star formations either back to back or head to head, which gives them different characteristics and different capabilities. So plasma is dynamic. Okay, so we're looking at the beginning of the building of the dimension. And that's all we're talking about is the origin of creation. And then what you'll need to look at is the field. And so how does that compare to the infinity loop? So with the infinity loop, you have a larger maggrav interacting with a smaller maggrav, and there's a flow of energy between them. The unfortunate part about this picture is it's in 2 dimensions. So to understand the energy flowing through this infinity loop, you have to go through the 3 dimensions and envision in your mind the 3rd dimension. But we have transmission and we have transition. The center point is the interaction point, and which way it is going is determined by susceptibility. But in this particular case, we're just looking at the convergence and divergence of energy coming to this convergent point in the middle. So we have 2 infinity loops that are interacting. So there's an interaction point at this conversion point. And so something is happening at this conversion point. This is the dynamic transfer state. And it can go, in both the X and the Y axis. This conversion point is the inertia point. This is the transmutation point. And so we're having a problem with the deficiency of the language in both the scientific and the spiritual community. And, we need to achieve a balance, a maggrav type balance between the pushing and the pulling between the 2 communities. They need to work together because the one is using terminology that is actually applying to plasma reality, and the other one is applying terminology that is relative to physical reality. And we know that there is a difference between the 2 realities because we know that we have cells in our body and they somehow manifest. Cells are created and multiply through division. Isn't that ironic? And so this is a manifestation from matter, or it's a manifestation to matter. But within our bodies, we're in a plasmatic matter. In our transportation vehicle, we are in a physical matter. And so all of this is a manifestation of the conversion of energy from our soul to light to whatever. And so today we've been talking about the small m matter conversion, because this is the physical conversion of energy into the small m matter state. So we know that the basic rule is the higher strength feeds the lower strength. And so this involves a neutron decay. And the reason it involves a neutron decay because it's a plasmatic interaction of gravitational magnetical field forces. And I say gravitational first because it's with respect to its environment. The tendency is to more density. Tendency to more density is gravitational. And so this conversion has conditions. This condition is the environment. So we have an environmental conversion of energy into every other condition. But interestingly enough, so we have our periodic table of elements, so we can create elements. But we also can create molecules, and molecules are a combination of elements. So we can see that even in our physicality, neutrons may be additive or they may be decayed. And so this is all dependent on the plasmatic interaction of the gravitational magnetical or the magnetical gravitational field forces with respect to the environment. So another pattern has emerged. And so when we look at the dynamic transfer state, and we talk in, say, generalities, and we've been building up this diagram with the MAGRAV, with the nano-coated wires and the GANs, and we're looking at the fields that are interacting. We have the physical structure, but we're looking at the fields and how they're interacting in both the X and Y axis. And then we have the field strength that is diverging and converging and in process converting, because there's energy that's coming in, going out, going around. And if there is no affinity, if there is no similarity, it'll just go pass on through as if we don't exist. But fortunately, on our planet here, it does exist. And so an interesting thing that we see is we have a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere, and these hemispheres are rotating, and they're rotating in opposite directions. However, our planet, the way we see our planet, is rotating in one direction. How is this possible? So there is a plasmatic reality and there's a physical reality. And so we see the interaction of these magnetical gravitational fields and their interaction and the infinity loop that combines them. And they combine both in the X and the Y axis, and they create a field, which is your Z axis. And so these are the various dimensions that we can operate in. And so as we go through these various dimensions, we are plasmatic beings playing in a physical reality. So when we look at the interaction point in the infinity loop, that interaction point is the interaction of the transmission and the transition movement. We're going to change this diagram, because if you link up the two together and they rotate in opposite directions, then they cannot be physically linked up. That's why we have two hemispheres. And then if we add in our understanding of our structure, we find that we have, and I put on the side here, a representation of the DNA RNA relative structure and how it fits into this infinity loop, and one is on top and one is on the bottom, and they are working opposite to each other. They rotate in opposite directions. And so we can see that there is a MAGRAV condition on the northern hemisphere and a MAGRAV condition on the southern hemisphere. And depending on your point of view, it's always going counterclockwise. But if you're looking at it from one point of view, one hemisphere is rotating one way and the other hemisphere is rotating the other way. But the whole planet is turning around together. So there has to be some kind of field that's interacting there on the equator. And we're going to talk about that even more, because that is why the Earth is turning around in one direction. And so to understand the difference between the plasma science and the physical science is when we look at the spaceship summary, there is a difference. So the saucer is like half the plasma field, and it's quite physical, whereas the other saucer is actually a sphere and it's plasmatic. And then, of course, we can change that by stretching it out and um, uh, creating a different kind of shape. And so that introduces a different kind of divergence and convergence. So we have a saucer, a sphere, and a cylinder. And so when we're looking at the convergence, we're looking at like our little tic-tac-toe game. We're trying to figure out whose turn is it next. So when we look at this, we have to look at the whole picture. This is only in 2 dimensions. And so for the purposes of discussion, the magnetical force fields involve attraction and repulsion. And in order to have a MAGRAV condition, they have to have both. So in order to have a direction of flow, there has to be a residue. So it's the MAGRAV plus the magnetical, or the MAGRAV plus the gravitational, and that gives you the direction of your flow. And so whether it's flowing out or flowing back is the difference between the divergence and convergence. And in this particular point, we're talking about activity on this planet. We have to keep talking about the cups of life. They're not the cups of the pandemic, but after 20 months, we're still faced with the pandemic. So we have to look after our own business. And let's see how today's topic is changing the picture here. The one cup is a zinc plate and a copper coil and a nano-coated copper coil. Please keep making these cups, keep making more cups. We have concerns about the magnetical field and the gravitational field. This is a cup of harmony. It is, as you can see, there's a lot of interaction between the various components inside the cup. And then that allows us to bring in GANs, another dimension. And then we can have an interaction there and introduce the zinc GANs and the copper GANs, which brings in the CO2 GANs. And then we're bringing in the amino acid, another dimension. And then, of course, the creation of water that goes hand in hand. And then we've understood that there's another dimension, the calcium carbonate GANs. So we have a whole lot going on in these cups. The second cup, change one thing. We introduce a copper plate, copper coil, copper plate, nano-coated copper coil, and but still magnetic field and still gravitational field. But there's a relationship now between the 2 cups of life, where one is emotional and one is physical. Yeah, but because they create each a magnetical field, keep them at least 1 meter apart if you're still dealing with the pandemic. Because once it gets the gravitational field strength in, it goes beyond the glass. It does not see the glass. Why? The plasma doesn't see the physical. There's a plasmatic reality and a physical reality. So keep these batches at least 1 meter apart and understand that we're using them for eradicating a virus. And why is that? Well, you see, the virus knows the difference between the plasmatic reality and the physical reality. And there's a difference. And one of them has to do with the density, and the other has to do with the way it is seeking energy. So energy is always in motion. So we're going to deplete the energy or convert the energy. Either way, we have a giving and a taking. And once that's done, we can put the cups together and build the cups of man. And the same thing happens. We create a gravitational field and a magnetical field, and the 2 work together as a representation of our emotional and physicality, our emotionality and our physicality. And so this is a representation as directed by our soul. So we introduced the cup of soul as well. So these 3 cups work together. Well, we've been talking about some more cups, the inertia cup and the earth cup. So last week we brought in the cup of inertia, which was a nano-coated copper coil, a second nano-coated copper coil, and a nano-coated copper plate. So now we see a slight difference, but the same reaction, a magnetical field and a gravitational field. So this is why I'm purposely not showing the wire connection here, because the plasma science is involving and understanding fields. And so now we have another interaction, that's the cup of Earth. So we started out in discussing iron and its anchorage to the Earth. So there we have a nano-coated iron coil in the center, and a nano-coated zinc coil, and a nano-coated copper plate. And that too has a magnetical field and a gravitational field. So now we've completed the stacker unit, and you see the individual structure of the individual components. And so you can see that there is a flow of logic. And so we start, with the cup of soul, then the emotional cup, the physical cup, the cup of inertia, and the cup of the environment. This is your 5-cup vertical system. And how they act together is each of them has a field strength, and each of them has a soul. And the combination of these create a unit. And that unit works together with a magnetical gravitational field and a soul. And so this is what we're talking today, the stacker, and how we've completed the stacker today. And although we're 75% water, we're not just a bag of water. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. The higher energy feeds the lower energy, and not the lowest, and not one. It feeds the lower, whichever is lower, and it keeps feeding. Well, where does this energy come from? And so this is the beauty. The plasma energy is fed through the soul. And so we have a dynamic transfer. And so this is a representation of the stacker unit that is showing the kind of alignment with our spine. And so our spine is positive and our extremities are negative. And so we have a direction of flow. And is there a preference? Do we flow to our feet more than to our hands? Or do we flow to our head more than we flow to our body? So the answer in the dynamic transfer state gives all that you need when you need it on demand. And we have manifest into a physicality. And that physicality is the destination state. So we have now transmuted into our transportation state, which is our destination state. And our destination can transfer and transport to another destination state. So when we look at range convergence, we see that there's a convergence of energy into the lowest energy, and the relationship with the stacker unit fits very nicely with the different energy levels. However, the plasma state is of a higher energy state. This is why it's a transcendent into a higher energy state. And so it can do a lot more effectively. And so the higher state feeds the lower state. And what we've done today is we've fed the capital M matter state, and then we're feeding the small m matter state. And there's a convergence of energy into its gravitational form. And the gravitational form is the densest. What is plasma? It's a kind of energy state. Energy is always interacting. All things are working in combination. There's a pushing and pulling of energies, and the balance of it is a Maggrav condition. And there's a residue. And that residue is action. And this is something that we need to understand, because the energy in plasmatic state is far more powerful than the energy in the physical state. And the plasmatic energy transfer is bound to the ethos of the universe. And that involves morality, compassion, and courage. Nothing that you can grab your hands onto, is there? This is all plasmatic, and it's all part and parcel of creation, because the creation is the ethos of the universe. Life wants to live, and the purpose of life is to learn, and learn how to be and do more. And so there's more than just the emotional and physical harmony. There's vitality, emotional and physical vitality. This is the plasma conversion. And today we've focused more again on the reality check. And the reality check, as we're trying to break down these barriers, and I don't want to belabor that point, I just want to say that today we have a new understanding and new perception of the stacker reality. The stacker reality is a figurative reality manifestation sequence that shows when two fields come together, they form another. The formation of any field is that manifestation. It's the plasma feeding that leads to this manifestation. But this manifestation could be non-tangible or tangible, non-visible or visible, plasmatic or physical, what we call dark matter or light matter. But it is a plasmatic reality and a physical reality. And either reality is a form artifact. And to achieve a form artifact is a manifestation. So even the emotion of presence is a form artifact of energy in motion. So as an archaeologist, when you look at these cups and some of these cups of life, and you look at the physicality of them, you can't see the plasma energy that is going around them. And these are from the Keshe Foundation. So here you have physical representation of a plasmatic possibility, and it's profound. You see, because energy binding is important. It's just that we are overemphasizing that in our self-serving determination, and we're doing it at the expense of others. And the best way to do that is to lie, cheat, and steal. In other words, double cross, right? There's no better way of deceiving someone than with the mastery of deception. And there are schools for that. It makes you wonder, because that's not the way the universe works. The universe works in its bounty, its bountifulness. And in the emblem of the Universal Council, you can see that there is no destination. The destination is what you want it to be. And so right now we are on the physical destination of this planet, and we are just the messengers. And the messengers of what? Peace and friendship. Peace and friendship is the essence of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute and the distribution of plasma science through the public domain. And the reason for it is because we need to bring a world peace treaty forward. Peace and that we sign with a pen and that we sign in with a heart represents our physical and emotional harmony and vitality. And we need to do that. And we know we need to do that because as knowledge seekers, we become truth seekers. But do truth seekers become difference makers? This is the challenge. So we need to understand that the dynamic plasma state within us is the universal language throughout. And plasma science needs to be delivered in exchange for peace on Earth. And that's the end of the lesson. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. I hope you enjoyed it.
Very nice, Alex. I think if I met you in space, you might be able to take me over because I'm mesmerized with your teaching. If we, I know Salamia is holding a question. She'd like Jalal or maybe yourself or maybe someone else to answer. But if we put up the picture of the principal, the transitional, and the matter, we know that a field has a directional movement, and a plasma has a directional and a rotational movement. So we're looking at this picture of the three states, for example, in each 1/3 quadrant of the circle. But in actuality, as Mr. Kesh said, if we're looking at it in 2 dimensions, if we were to look at it in 3 dimensions, right? Is all this mixed up within the circle, each as an individual, but knows its strength? I know he said that the transitional matter had huge gravitational field forces or effects in the transitional part of it. But is it all mixed up in the same ball, so to speak? Is this where the X, Y, and Z comes in? But they each know their respective positions or strengths.
So if you're looking at, let's say rush hour traffic, and you see people coming off the buses going to work, they all seem pretty well organized. You know, generally speaking, they all get to their destination, and they don't all have the same destination, but they have to cross paths. So how does one cross the path of another without interfering? Is this the slide that you were talking about?
Yes. Anything with the 3 quadrants there?
Yeah, so for the purposes of education, we're trying to show the different fields. But the thing is that when you look at the matter field with the colors, that you know is physicality, is a representation of physicality. But the interesting part about the matter is that the matter is actually a conversion of going from the plasma into the physicality. That's why you see the different colors of the rainbow there. Because the different colors of the rainbow, in order for you to see that, are the evidence of physicality. See, this is such a good question you asked, because this is what happened in the Spanish community a couple of weeks ago. We had a difficulty in understanding the difference between the plasma reality and the physical reality. And so the astonishment of the unexplainable experiences had to do with, let's say, you know, feeling greater warmth, or seeing a glow. Well, see, these are all physical representations. And on that basis, we're looking for evidence of some kind of plasmatic interaction. The truth of the matter is that form artifact is the evidence. So the evidence is there. It's just that we don't call it evidence. It's, oh, I see the light. I see the light. Do you see the light? Do you see the light, or is it an epiphany? And what is an epiphany? Or what is an awakening? So think of it as you're in a sleep state. And at that point in time, do you have that physicality? So the only time really that you can remember anything from your sleep state is at that point of conversion, at the moment that you're waking up. And if you can remember and practice to remember, you will remember your dream. But your dream, and it could be, you know, it could be a major expedition, and it only takes a flash, an instant. And when I say a flash or an instant, that means a portion of a second. And it's in that moment when you wake up. and that flashes across. And if you can remember and capture it and solidify it, crystallize it, gravitationalize it at that point in time, then it becomes etched in your memory. And the memory is the growing of the manifestation of this knowledge. And so that can be transcribed in the physicality, but it's retained in the plasma state. And so that's where your DNA is working. Your DNA is the receptor for your physical life. And the RNA is carrying that forward. So that's where your DNA RNA is interacting. And so how much knowledge do you take away from here is determined by how much you feed to your physicality. And if you limit all your possibilities, then you don't get fed enough and you go hungry. So we're all hungry for knowledge, and there's a reason for it. It's because we haven't been given enough. So if we understand that that point of awakening is the point that we have to crystallize that knowledge. And then that becomes part and parcel of us. We don't have time to bring that knowledge forward. Imagine, every time you have a situation in your life and you have to make a physical move for a physical decision, and then you have to go back through your history and say, well, let me think about it, and this is one of the jokes we say about the Canadian mentality. If I propose to give you $1 and it would cost you 50 cents, would you do it? And so that now you have to have a physical impulse to give the 50 cents. So we say jokingly in Canada that, we have to defer to the committee to come up with a decision on that. And so we compare the Canadian ideology to the American ideology, and what the American would say, you mean $1 would cost me 50 cents? Tell you what, I'm going to give you $5,000 and I'll give it to you right now. And that's the difference. So we now use that knowledge and we bring it forward, but we don't have to go through the individual levels to remember, 1 and 1 is 2. I learned that in grade 1, and then I learned about, trigonometry, and then I went to university and I learned all about business. You don't have to bring all that forward. It's just automatic. And this is the point. The plasma substructure is there. And then how fast can we bring it in? And it's dependent on our confidence. If we don't have the confidence in our knowledge, then we say, geez, I don't know. Or I don't have the authority to make that decision. Well, there is a time and a place for you to make that decision. So, when the time and the decision comes to your family and you're the head of the household, then you better make the decision. And if you're, the president of the country and you're paid to make decisions, then you better make those decisions. And if your decisions are not to the benefit of the people that elected you, then you better step down and bring someone else in. And if you can't do the job, then, you just resign and let someone in to come in and do the job. So on this panel here, we're all volunteers. And the reason we're volunteers here is because those who are paid to do the job are not doing it. So we're finding new opportunities. Okay. So what is the motivation for these opportunities? The knowledge that comes from the amalgamation of the force fields that come together from all the knowledge that has been sent through energy packs through the universe.
Alex,
Hi, Jalal.
I change the volunteers to pioneers.
Pioneers.
Okay,
I think we're going to
Thank
introduce a lot of new terminology. We're going to need special classes on that and special students to bring things forward. Each of us has talents and to bring that in. But you know, when you're looking at this chart here, for instance, it kind of is the basis of a discussion, isn't it? We can go into any dimension, any field reference, any dynamic interaction and discuss it. Would you agree?
From my side, yes, of course.
yes, since everything is made up of fields, from the
Yeah.
smallest to the largest, there's nothing that can't be interacted with.
Yeah, so now the interaction field operates by the same rules. That's what we've been missing.
I know Salomia has been holding a question. Are you still with us, Salomia?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much.
Would you like to state your question? And if I may add, Adrian in the chat said, we've started building the ship. We managed to understand the propulsion. Soon we will show the control cabin of the structure. Maybe he could add something after your question is answered, Salomia.
Yes, of course. My question is related to these signs, plus and minus. Minus is magnetical and giving, and gravitational is plus and absorbing, receiving, or vice versa, because Jalal taught in another way and Mr. Alex in another way, so I get confused. Thank you very much for answering.
So the gravitational is more dense. To be more dense, it has to have more mass. So it's taking. So if you have more, you're adding more.
Yeah.
But now it becomes a higher field strength. And so the higher feeds the weaker. But we didn't say which one is the higher and which one is the weaker. We're just saying the basic rules. So the implication is that this magnetical force is negative and this gravitational force is positive. However, if we change the relationship, then that gravitational force could be now the giver. So if it's giving, it's now minusing its energy. In order for it to retain that density, it has to draw more energy in. And so this is the basics of energy in motion. You give and then you receive. You have to give before you receive, but you have to give and receive because energy cannot be stopped. Energy is always in motion. So if you want to contain it in your gravitational system, you have to run it through a field rotation. This is your plasma. And how strong is that plasma field? Well, that all determines on its relationship and its positioning. So which dimension are we talking about? Which range are we talking about? Which energy state are we talking about? We're never defining those things. We're still in the, basic understanding. So I think it's just like a piano. If you, you hit middle C and the next note up is D and the next note down is B. So now you know that, which direction is going, but you don't play piano that way. playing with arpeggios and chords and scales, and you're not thinking positive and negative or like that. That if you sit down to the piano, if you go to the right, well, you're going higher. If you go to the left, you're going lower notes. It's just automatic, so you don't think about it. It's the same thing when you leave home. When you leave home, as far as the home is concerned, you're being very negative. But when you go to work, you're being very positive. So as far as work is concerned, you're gravitating towards work. And as far as the home is concerned, you're leaving, you're very magnetical. But after you finish your work and you want to come back, well, now the work is magnetical and the home is gravitational. And so this is your destination. So whatever your destination is, that's your gravitational. And so the impetus to go is your magnetical. And so there's always a transition in between. And, the decision on how you do that, we all have that decision-making capability. And so this becomes the point. When you have the knowledge, you have the responsibility. And when you have the responsibility, then you have to take charge which direction you're going. So most of us have not been taught that we have this capability. I mean, in general, to look at life that way, because if you look at health, for instance, I have bad health. Okay, so I have failed in looking after myself. So I'm going to now transfer that responsibility to someone else. Well, that's an abdication of your responsibility, isn't it? And we've grown accustomed to doing that, and which is really, really too bad. But what other choice do we have? Because you look at our environment and you say, well, the environment's not my fault. It's not my fault that there's all this pollution around. Well, it is indirectly your fault because you're part of the system and you contribute to part of the system. So we all have to make a decision each and every day. Are we part of the problem or are we part of the solution? And the easy way to answer that is you get up in the morning and you have a determination of what you're going to do, which is predetermined by your soul through your dreams. And if you can remember the activity that you need to proceed through that day, and it doesn't have to be that day, it could be a precursor that could happen a few days down the road. But the point is, at the end of the day, you judge and say, well, is this planet better for me being here than for me not being here? And if the answer is yes, this planet has improved for me being here, then I would say that you're a universal functionary. And if the answer is, no, I've caused a lot of hardship, I've caused a lot of sorrow and grief, then I have words for you that I can't express at this family show. So we all make our choices, and we have to understand that consequences come from those choices. So I hope I've answered your question in that regard.
Yes. Thank you very much. You answered my question. And related with your picture here, your slide, I mean, plasma is created from more than 2 pemetics. And these pemetics are magnetical and gravitational, or they are only magnetical, and when they form the field, magnetical field, they create the soul, which is gravitational in the middle.
Okay, so the second, okay, they are, the PM ticks are magnetical.
Yeah.
They're looking for a destination. That destination is their gravitational destination point.
Yes.
However, the construct of the PM tick itself has a magnetical gravitational relationship. So the PM tick to be magnetical, that magnetical is a residue of its maggrav condition. So it has a magnetical gravitational component to be a maggrav. So the PM tick itself is a maggrav, but it only has a magnetical construct or magnetical residue, which is the representative of its construct. Okay, so we kind of discount. We say, oh, the PM tick is magnetical, and discount its maggrav condition. Well, then if you discount its maggrav condition, then you would say that it's nothing. And so then we come to the conclusion that, outer space is a vacuum and it has nothing there. Well, no, energy is always in motion. And so in order to be, you cannot not be. Okay, you cannot not be. You can only be, but you can be this or be that, and you make a choice. So if I have a choice to be this, but I choose to be that, then I'm not this. Okay, I've made that choice, but I cannot say I'm not this. I can only say that I am that. You cannot say what you're not, because if you start to say what you're not, well, we're going to be here till, next year, because you're not everything. It's not what you're not, it's what you are. And what you are is the convergence of this energy, and you're here in the now. And so the now is the convergence of this energy into the present. And we have a capability of converting that into either plasma reality or into a physical reality, but not necessarily. And so once we understand this field transformation, then we can understand, oh, so even though we can't see it, it doesn't mean that it's not there, because the seeing is one aspect of the reality. And so this becomes, and this is the huge breakthrough that we made in the Spanish community, this becomes the essence of understanding what is plasmatic and what is physical, because we've had a lot of confusion and we can't separate the two apart. So, if you can see it, you can feel it, you see a color, you see a mirage, you see an emanation, you see a form artifact, that's physical. That's it. That's the evidence. That's all you need to know. So if you don't see it, what is your awareness like? And so we now find that, oh, there are other senses. Oh, we haven't even discussed these other senses. Well, if there is a force field that you cannot see, how do you sense it? How do you know that it's there? So guess what? One of the easiest things that we had a hole in our gans. We had a bottle filled with gans and water, and then suddenly there's a hole in the gans. How did you do that? Did you do that with a swizzle stick? Did a bunny rabbit come in there and stir its paw? And then if you move it around, you will destroy the hole. So why is there a hole? Well, because it's a rotating field. So if there's a rotating field around the outside, then there's a hole in the inside. Doesn't that make sense? And why not? Because the gans is more dense than the hole, isn't it? But does that mean there's nothing in the hole? Well, no. As the miners say, there's a fire in the hole. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Alex. Is there anyone else who'd like to bring something up? I know I was just thinking about this periodic table of elements. And I know Mr. Kesh said there are so many emotions that we haven't even discovered yet. And I guess we're going to be learning more. We just think about the basic emotions, but there's many, many emotions I think that the man is going to discover. And it also relates to the periodic table of elements, where he said it should be probably in 3 digits or 4 digits as we go into the universe, and so on and so forth. We're going to be discovering things that have already been there. But I was just wondering, if it's in 3 or 4 digits, do you think our body contains more elements than we would see on this chart that are there, but we just haven't discovered them? I would have to say yes. And each one of these elements, I think, carries an emotion.
See, that is such a fabulous question. Okay, this is where, you know, all the teachers become gratified when you ask a question like that. Okay, because it shows a depth of understanding. The environment has a factor. So when we look at the completion of the stacker unit, that's our environment on this planet. So, you know, why we picked iron, because that is the anchorage point. Okay, so without the iron, then there is no anchorage point to this planet. If we go to another planet, it has a different physiology. And then when I say physiology, it could have a different periodic table of elements. The beauty of Earth is that it has these beautiful elements on the Earth. Okay, and so they have all come together very, you know, quite nicely. And when I say quite nicely, that you know, if we have peace on Earth here, you know, I don't know if there are people on this planet who've never experienced peace. They don't know what peace means. They don't know what it means to be, you know, part of nature and to see nature in its glory. It's a difficult concept, but once you get that taste, wow, you know, you say, gee whiz, maybe this planet would be better off for us not being here. Maybe we should just all leave, you know. But the thing is, how do we get here? So the answer to that is really, we have a functionality and we can interact with all of these elements here. And the Earth called us here, okay? Because the Earth is the gravitational caller. And the interaction of the Earth with the sun gave us our coordinates and our focal point for us to come here. So we had to agree. When did you agree? When you were 3 years old? I'd say that's kind of too late, right? Because you're already here. You know, it's kind of like you're in the stadium watching the game, and then someone asks you for, did you want to go to the game? Hey, I'm already here, you know. So it's a redundant question. So that becomes the same thing, you know. Why did you come here and how did you come here? Well, you know, well, we're here. So why is not the question, why is the answer? So what we need to do is we need to learn more and more of these skills. Well, guess what? These skills can be transferred to another environment. And as you say, that environment may be even more complex. And if it's more complex, would it be more beautiful? And that's one of the things Mr. Cash said. is if we see how beautiful it is in some of these other places, we'll leave for the next train or the next universal body enhancement unit.
Yes, I've been thinking
You are
about,
grounded. You are grounded.
We're leaving Dodge. Pack up your goodies and let's go.
as you said, Alex, some people have never experienced peace or as much beauty and so on. And I've been thinking a lot about Palestine this week, and I've always have, but even more so as far as what Mr. Kesh had mentioned last week. And I sort of see something coming here with these passports, and maybe you can only travel on certain roads. And so I see the creating in our countries this sort of effect of a West Bank or a Gaza Strip situation. I know it's going to be defeated in the very near future.
So why you go back if you know
But
it's will be
but I was
defeated?
but because I've been thinking about a whole lifetime of a population that has never been able to really experience beauty or experience some of these things. And I mean, if it's been a 40-year prison camp, I mean, some of these people have never seen this. the way it should be. And I know we're going to be able to deliver this very soon.
All this teaching of Mr. Gash didn't give you a viewpoint that you are a magnet and you can adjust this magnet for whatever you can take or you give. It is, in reality, it is very, very easy. But how much you accept, this is the difference.
Right. I just want to see the others have what I'm understanding or what I'm experiencing as well.
It is you who is important. I always say
I
it is
understand.
you.
Yes, I
Just
understand.
one person who is understanding, all will understand. And not you brought something very beautiful. And this is the matter state and this periodic table of elements. But there is, as Alex said, there is two parts missing. And this is the transition and the soul. So we know about it. Why we don't we use it? And especially the last teachings. Let me give you a tip. He is feeding you. He is feeding you with a spoon. But he didn't tell you. You know who is he. So don't waste times, guys.
Well, I'm just stating their cause, that's all.
You know, I am not against
And
what you're saying, Mark.
I feel their feelings, or at least I think I do. And it's an injustice and it needs to be corrected, and we need to show respect to all life on this planet. And Mr. Kesh did say some very strong words last week, and I reviewed them. It touched me.
Can I say something?
Oh, okay.
Right
Hello?
after her, Fried, if you could wait.
Oh, thank you. I have a different point of view about the Palestine, and you told about happiness or good feelings about those. My thought is different. I think it is your point of view. Sometimes we don't know how other people feel. A long time ago, I read a story about a black man who was slave. Not who, his father and mother was slave. So they were very poor and very bad way they live. And then that man, when he grew up, the boy who grown up, when he grown gentleman, so he was a singer. He was no more a slave. His father, mother, I don't know about their father, mother, but the man, when he grown up, he has a lot of money. He's a famous man. And then one time, one journalist come to him and talking to him about his life. He was saying, oh, your parents was a slave and this and that. You was so poor. You must be in bad condition in there. Maybe you was very sad, this and that. So that man was laughing, and he's thinking about his mother. Oh, they didn't have the hot water. So he used to, his mother used to give him a shower in the cold water early in the morning outside. And his mother loved him so much. So he's thinking, the man is thinking, he was in the heaven when his mother was there, and his life was so good, and he was so happy that time. And then the journalist thinking, oh my God, he was a slave son, and he didn't had enough food, he didn't had good life. So the journalist feeling bad about him, his before life. But the man who was there, his childhood was better for him. So we don't know everybody's mind, we don't know everybody's feeling. How I feel, you don't know. Maybe you are seeing me, I am in poor condition, bad condition, but what I am feeling, only I know. What you are feeling, only you know. Everybody's point of view is different. That's all. Did you understand?
Yes, agree.
Thank you.
But just put yourself in that position for a moment.
Exactly. This is my point.
Thank you.
We all used and we worked with the ganses, and as Mr. Cash said, you worked with the copper ganses. Okay, go a step further. Use a zinc as a dominator and do all your ganses, all what you done. Cup of the man, the twin cups, the vertical cups, the CO2, the CH3, the zinc, the whatever you do it with the zinc. Go step higher. So if you didn't achieve it with physicality, achieve it with the emotion. And it is higher. This is the transition. Let your principle, not the copper, let your principle is the zinc. And related to what Salomia asked, it is really crucial to understand which one is the positive and which one is the negative. There is a lot of teaching in that diagram what Mr. Cash brought, and how you can change position to position, and how you can make a matter state behave as plasma. And a lot of knowledge seekers, they are wondering how, and it's not difficult if you know.
Well, one of the things he suggested was making that zinc spiral with a galvanized spiral nano-coated together and see what you come up with. And I think we have that in the Cup of Universe as well. Not the original, but then later on he said you could nano-coat the sheet, and I think he put an N over the spiral of the composite, and those can be changed as well to any sort of.
But this is the fourth step. You didn't do the second step. There is a lot of knowledge in that Universe Cup.
That's why it's going to take so many universities and everyone trying to unravel this, because it's very deep, as he said. He's delivered so much knowledge that I think if he just left it in the hands of the knowledge seekers, we would get it, but it'd probably be a longer time. And he
In 1,000 years.
Yeah, right. Just the cup alone of the cup one, he said that it would take man hundreds of years to unravel what's going on. We made it look simple, but it's not simple.
If you are lucky, 1,000 years.
Exactly. Free, did you want to come in here, Jalal, when Jalal finishes?
Yes, I am finished.
Yes, hello everyone. I heard about Palestine and I happened to know about absolutely wonderful project. And you can find it at the link that I gave in the chat. And it's a plan from 2002, so it's almost 10 years old, and it could build completely Palestine from the ground up, because
20 years, you mean?
there
20
is
years.
nothing now, and this will be possible with this plan. And I wrote that it is from a Californian architecture bureau, and you can find it at the website rand.org. Rand is a corporation, an American corporation, who normally does a lot of war things, but this time they said there should be a plan for Palestine, because when Palestine has nothing, so there must be a way that Palestine could become a viable state. And that was the call for it, and Sussman Urban Architecture had the best plan for it. But it's almost 10 years ago now. So it would be time to at least know about this plan. It's just a
Or
fantastic plan.
as
Very
Jalal said, it was 2002 you put in, so it's been 20 years.
20 years, sorry. Yes, 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago. Unbelievable.
That is a good part of a lifetime for an individual that was born in 2002, and now they're 20, and the hope is not there.
You know what? What a shame, really. So much intelligent man, he's only looking for stealing and killing, and without just get out from this cycle. And I think as a pioneers, in reality, we can do much more than what we think.
Agree.
Yes, and especially when you see this project, you think how it is possible that it was not immediately worked out. So it starts with a 8-minute video, and then there is a lot of material on this website. And I think Rand Corporation did one time a very good job. Normally they did for war, but this time they did it for peace. So I invite you that you look at this project.
Okay, but in reality, what the world will do when they start to manufacture some cars and vehicles, and they can go from here to here in seconds. What they will do in reality? You know,
Exactly.
what will really will happen? Is there a meaning of possession now? This is mine, and this is for me, and this is. You know, there's no words for this. You know? You cannot find words for this. It will be mayhem. But they did have their time and their chance all over the world. It is for 30, 40 years is out, this knowledge. And it's covered the whole planet since the day one. From day one. That's who's choosing to receive, and who's choosing to to object. It's nothing to do with intelligent. We're all intelligent enough. Anyway, everything will be
Work out.
for good.
Yeah, no question.
You know, we are trying to pull his leg, but there is no movement.
I think he's ready. When he's ready. He could be doing some multitasking in the background as well, but we always do want to hear from Mr. Kesh.
Maybe he's cooking.
Yes, he gives us a beautiful world overview every time, and some of the new technologies that he's playing with in the lab and that are going to be released. There's so much he's given us already that needs to be unraveled or deciphered, Jalal. But he's going to continue on. Just so I think this is part of humbling of the man in a way, to realize how much knowledge he doesn't carry, even though he thinks he's got the whole world in his hand. John, I'm going to mute your mic if that's okay. Would someone else like to bring something up on the table? Or open up a different subject right now? Of course, when you're given knowledge that's a billion years old or older, or billions of years old, it's very humbling to start to work with it and try to understand it. But our souls understand quite a lot more than we give them credit for. Lissy has a hand up. Go ahead, Lissy.
Hello, everybody. How are you today? I have a question, the other question about the last workshop. Mr. Case explained about the who people are helping me, Alenka maybe, with Spanish, because
Alenka?
I need
Are you with us?
John here,
Okay.
and Dan too.
Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Alenka, yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Alenka, thank you.
Okay.
Mira,
Okay, Lizzy.
en el último taller, Mr. Kesh explicó sobre, entendí que en la botella que estaba totalmente nanorecubierta, lo que él tenía allí estaba produciendo CH3. Mi pregunta es que si en este contenedor yo lo nanorecubrí, traduce por favor y yo busco la.
Okay. It is a question about the bottle of that was shown in the last teaching by Mr. Kesh. There is something that Lizzy would like to know. Adelante, Lizzy.
Quiero saber si yo nanorecubrí este contenedor, yo lo nanorecubrí. Yo siempre bueno, ahora lo nanorecubro con soda cáustica. Todo lo que tengo aquí son nanos y cobre nano y no cobre nano, unidos por cobre nano. Si yo estoy produciendo. Okay.
¿Qué contenedor
ya
es?
ya te lo muestro. Es lo que quiero ver si se puede mostrar.
Es que es importante el
I have it. Te lo voy a mostrar.
El tipo
Aquí
de
está.
contenedor que tienes.
Míralo, ahí está.
Es de
Aquí
plástico.
Está.
Es
Sí,
de
es de
plástico.
Sí, sí,
Ok.
sí.
Entonces, en ese
¿Estás
contenedor.
viendo? ¿Lo están viendo?
Sí.
Ok.
Que,
Yo lo
¿qué es lo que quieres saber?
en soda cáustica.
Okay. That container has been nano-coated by Lizzy, and she would like to know if...
Ok. Si estoy produciendo cobre con la fuerza del hierro.
¿Qué es lo que tienes allí?
Cobre nano recubierto y cobre desnudo, pero unidos con cobre.
Solamente cobre, solamente cobre.
Solo cobre, pues copa de vida 1 nada más. 2, perdón.
Ok. Ok. Entonces lo que tú quieres saber es si tienes la fuerza del hierro.
En este cobre, ajá.
Ok. What Lizzie wants to know is that if she has in those pieces that are nano-coated, which have a copper base, if she has the strength of the iron.
Y si es así,
And
sí nos ayuda porque el problema que tenemos con el hierro ahora, entonces, ¿podemos o no usarlo ahora? Thank you.
¿cómo usarlo como?
Porque es que acuérdate que el hierro en ese momento no lo debemos usar, pero si este tiene la fuerza del hierro, pero no
lo tiene.
trabaja
Lizzie.
igual que el hierro, pongámoslo así, puro.
No tiene la fuerza del hierro. Bueno, pero vamos a dejar que te contesten.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Sí.
Thank you so
Then
much.
what she wants to know is that if these pieces that she has been nano-coating and they are copper, if these pieces have the strength of the iron, and if they do have the strength of the iron, if she can use them for the cup 2. Para la copa 2, ¿verdad?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Ya está la pregunta. ¿A quién estás preguntando?
Pues no sé si Yalal me puede responder o yo pensaría que Yalal o Mr. Tess, no sé.
Maybe Jalal can answer that.
Or Mr. Tess too, so.
Or Mr. Kesh.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want to use it for what? Cup 2, you said?
Yes.
Yes.
Cup 2.
Cup 2 is the copper oxide, yes?
Yes.
Okay. You can have all the elements, whatever you want, from any elements you can get in your hand.
Allí puedes tener todos los elementos que quieras de todos los elementos que están en tu copa.
Look,
No.
The plasma is one.
El plasma es uno.
It is only the inertia which, in respect to the strength of this plasma, it showed itself what kind of material you see.
Es solamente la inercia de lo que ves en este plasma, lo que tú tienes ahí.
Okay.
The environment this plasma interact in,
El ambiente interactúa en,
it accepted to be there, showed itself as what color is, what number is.
Se muestra a sí mismo sobre qué número es.
In respect to what? How much it gives and how much it takes.
Con respecto a qué, dependiendo de lo que da y de lo que toma.
Okay, you are like a plasma. You are plasma, yes?
Tú eres como un plasma.
Yes.
Okay. If I take this plasma and I go, let's say, to another solar system.
Digamos que yo llevo este plasma a otro sistema solar.
Do you think you will have the same body, the same beauty, the same hair, the same whatever you are in?
¿Crees que tú tendrás la misma belleza, el mismo cuerpo, el mismo pelo que tienes en este momento?
Due to your knowledge, you say, yes, I want to be in this shape. Okay.
Okay, tú dices, bueno, yo quiero tener esta forma.
But you know what? This shape there, it will be the apple tree, similar to the apple tree.
Pero sabes una cosa, esta combinación, ese plasma sería allá algo similar tal vez a un árbol de manzanas.
So do you accept to be the apple tree?
¿Tú aceptas
You have the
ser
choice.
un árbol de manzana?
You have the choice. You want to give more and receive more in the emotion side because you are an apple. And
Tú tienes la decisión.
And, delicious and beauty and green and red and whatever. It's your choice.
Tú tienes la decisión de ser como una manzana sabrosa, bonita, saludable. Es tu decisión.
So, go back to this what you are showing in this picture? Yes, you can. You can
Así
make
es
the
que-
copper behave as a iron. You can make the copper behave as a gold. You can make the copper behave as whatever you want. If you know how to nanocode it, how you nanocode it, and in which environment, and which information you embedded in.
Y volviendo al contenedor que tienes que has mostrado, es tu decisión de lo que tú quieres hacer de ahí. Tú puedes hacer, dependiendo del nano recubrimiento que le hagas, cualquier material, puede ser el hierro, puede ser el oro o cualquier otro elemento que tú quieras tener.
And if you remember, I think you remember when Mr. Cash brought up the one cup, one life, he said, even you, if you know what to do with the copper, you do not need the zinc if you don't have.
Y si tú recuerdas cuando el señor Keshe nos estuvo enseñando la copa 1, nos dijo que si comprendes lo que estás haciendo, tú puedes, si no tienes zinc, puedes hacer zinc.
Let me tell you a question, and maybe you can ask it yourself. What is the difference between orange and lemon?
Permíteme hacerte una pregunta. ¿Cuál es la diferencia entre una naranja y un limón?
The different energy, that's it. The different plasma.
You answer it. You try. You answer it yourself. If you answer it, then you will understand how to make this copper behave at whatever you want.
Contéstate a ti misma y entonces tú sabrás que puedes hacer que tu copa haga lo que tú quieres.
If I tell you, I will dictate the information. But if you find it yourself, you will dictate the information as you like.
Entonces yo podría dártela, pero tú también puedes encontrar la información para lograr hacerlo como tú quieres.
I hope I answered you.
Espero haberte contestado.
Es half and half. Because, porque
Mitad
lo que
y
pasa es que
mitad. Y mitad.
más o menos, sí, ya. Because, por la información que escuché en el taller de Mr. Cash,
From the
el hecho de
information
que
that I heard from Mr. Cash,
porque la caja está nano recubierto con soda cáustica,
because a
cambiaría.
box
Ya,
is
ya.
nano-coated, that would change the
Y
results.
quizá por eso tengan la fuerza.
Wait.
Okay.
You have a
Please,
problem.
thank
You
you.
had a problem with a fixed position and an open position.
Tú tienes un problema porque estás en una posición abierta.
A fixed position, it's the matter state is fixed position.
La posición del estado de la materia es una posición que está fija.
But once is enter the world of the plasma, finish. You do not work anymore with the matter state, although it is a matter state. But
Pero una vez que ya está en el estado de plasma, ya cambia, ya no estás en el estado de la materia, aunque aparentemente está la materia.
Yes,
If we say the soul of any entity or matter, it can you can, if you go to the soul level, you can do whatever you want. You can create whatever you want. So what is the difference?
Al nivel del alma, tú puedes crear lo que tú quieras. Entonces, ¿cuál es la diferencia?
And of course, Armin asked Mr. Kesh if we could nanocode all the elements in the cup of universe in the same box. And he said, of course you can. He said, we've been doing that together for years with Armin.
You remember when I brought this, I think Dean knows when, if you remember.
So
Yeah,
would that help the copper get the field strength of the iron?
¿Ayudaría eso? Que el cobre obtenga la fuerza del hierro.
It is a distance gap, my dear friends. Due to the distance gap, this element will behave.
Debido a la distancia de la copa, estos elementos podrían comportarse así.
It's you. Are you a creator? No way. but you can behave as a creator.
¿Eres tú un creador? No, pero puedes comportarte como un creador.
No, no one will will be against that. If you can love, if you are in peace, if you give, if you care, if you this is the action of the creator. So you can be that.
Nadie estaría en contra de eso. Si
So
tú
in that
puedes
meaning,
amarte, puedes sentir.
what is the difference?
Así que, ¿cuál es la diferencia?
If the same plasma make gold and the same plasma make iron, so what is the difference?
Con un mismo plasma tú puedes hacer oro y tú puedes hacer hierro. ¿Cuál es la diferencia?
Change the environment, the plasma will change. If it's open, not fixed position.
Cambia el medio ambiente.
Yes. Yes, yes.
You are in a-
Environment inertia too? Environment inertia or
yes,
only
yes, of
environment?
course.
Of course. Okay,
Ambos.
thank you.
You are dealing with the inertia. Go to the teaching 288.
Ve a la lección, a las enseñanzas 288.
Believe me, and
288.
this question, what you said just now, you will find it in the beginning of this teaching, of the 288.
Al
It will
principio
help
de
you a lot.
esa enseñanza.
Okay,
Te
thank you.
ayudará mucho.
I go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Alenka, Jelal.
Ok, por nada, con
It's
gusto.
good Spanish, Jelal.
Yeah, yes, I will learn. I you know, I am staying here with you guys. I'm not leaving.
Está aprendiendo.
I am a Spanish teacher. You go, no problem.
I will join you on your teaching, don't worry.
Hello, everybody. Everybody. So I don't know how the nano-coated copper would react as iron in cup 2. I don't see how. What's the logic? It's the same inertia for both of them in the same environment. So why should copper act like iron in cup 2? And why do we need iron in cup 2?
I don't think they need the iron in cup 2, Mehnaz.
Yeah, darling, but how come iron is the same as nano-coated copper?
Who say iron is the same nano-coated copper?
I think I heard that question was, sorry, I had a big dinner with wine. Sorry if I make it. I'm sorry if I do.
I think she said copper with the field strength of iron.
Exactly.
Yes,
So,
yes, you can have this. You can have this. Yes.
it means like we can transfer nano-coated copper to iron.
You can transfer nano-coated copper to gold.
No, to iron. I don't want gold. Anybody looks for gold. But iron, why? How can it, nano-coated copper becomes iron?
Just measure the fields of the iron. Why it is iron in the first place? Why it is iron?
For me, iron.
No. I mean this plasma. Why it is iron?
It's nano-coated copper.
No, you didn't understand what I mean.
She has a nano-coated copper or nano-coated box, and she thinks she can use it as an iron.
Oh, okay, and look, you know what? Mr. Cash in the last teaching, he said, the iron have a secret. And this secret related to what? The gravitational field of what? Come to the teaching tomorrow.
Hemoglobin, the blood.
No, have nothing to do with
the iron is I don't know. It's an element. I don't know anything else about iron. You tell me.
No, don't. It's not a mixture, and you take from it.
In fact, I don't know. I want you to tell me how iron can be replaced by nano-coated copper.
If you open up the strength of the iron, you can get whatever metals you want. Any material. What it contains? It contains the 3 components of the plasma. Yes.
So we need. We need salt water.
No. Answer me. Every material you see is as a matter. It have the 3 components of the plasma. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you sure about that?
In inertia, it creates that are elements in each environment.
No. Just leave inertia, leave environment, everything. I'm speaking about one matter state.
Yeah, matter state depends on the environment, the condition.
Okay, but now you have a matter state, whatever name you put. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You just go to the understanding of this, what you have in your hand. It have the 3 components of the plasma.
Okay.
It have the matter state, it have the transition, and it have the principle.
Exactly.
So the principle is all over 1.
You want to say that it's like the neutron, which you break into proton and electron?
You give it whatever name. The principle is 1 all over from here to end of this creation. It is 1.
So
that means the soul is 1 all over.
So
if you can enter the soul level, you can change whatever material you want.
Right.
So,
but you need acidic or basic situation conditioning now. How do you do that?
I'm speaking about the plasma.
Yeah, how do you open principle?
If you find someone to take from you.
Yeah, I know CH3, H3, these are all related, H2, H4.
This is a name. This is a name.
How about copper?
The beauty, in the last teaching of Mr. Cash, he said, understanding the knowledge is more important than the knowledge itself. Because if you understand, you can work in every and each environment you are in. But copying a knowledge, it will give you just a small limited position. You cannot go out of it.
You said the teaching number 228?
No, this is 288.
7, I think you said, or is it 288?
288. This is regarding what Lisa asked.
Yeah, thank you. I try to look. Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you.
No, but it's really, thank you for your question, Mehnaz. And that's put a lot of knowledge seekers really to understand. It is not anymore copying. I see a cupboard winding this way. No way in the world can anyone can make the same field of this copper. No way. But if you go beyond what you see, you go to the understanding, then you can do it with with any matter in your hand. Even without matter, you have your hands, and it is amazing. We discuss a matter and we stick with the matter, but we have more power than that, but we do not discuss it because the knowledge now is the universe cup. What is universe cup? It is your body, it's your brain. What is in your brain? You see coils, and you see composite coil, and this term and that term. Or this is, you go and you find the understanding beyond that. What is the understanding beyond that? What is 10 term means? What is 20 term means? What is energy and what is gravity means? What is inertia means in this case? What is the point of memory? What is the point of okay, why he said, I will not give you how you connect, because in this diagram you have a physicality ganses, you have an emotion ganses, and you have a soul ganses. The three component is there. So how you connect, it's you. You decide. Maybe I will connect one part with a part with it, which is in the other room. And for me, it will work because in a way, in my understanding, I know what I'm doing because I wanted to do that. But is it applicable to you? It's for your understanding. We are working only until now with physicality, and this is the copper. So go to the emotion, work with the emotion, and then when you finish, go to the soul level. And when you finish, you can add any of them: the physicality, the emotion, the energy, the gravity, and respect. You stopped coming to the deciphering, my dear. That's why you're asking.
Sorry, you missed me, huh?
Yes, we do. But I don't see a problem with copying. Doesn't the universe copy often? I mean, the energy of the solar system universe became the sun. The energy of the sun became the earth. The energy of the earth became the soul of the man. When you find a position in the universe that can accommodate the structure of the man, couldn't you replicate or copy your structure? Doesn't the neutron continuously and regularly split into the electron and proton? I don't see one neutron telling another neutron, don't do that. You can't copy.
If the apple tree stop copying, she will be elevated. I will not say this, monkey see, monkey do.
Doesn't one universe come out of another one? Didn't man's universe come out of a larger universe? Isn't this in a way a copy? The same way the proton and
Why copy? Is your son is copy of you?
Well, it's a replication of another universe. It might be a slightly different strength, but as we know, if we break the magnet into a small piece, it still has the same strength as the big piece, or the same field power, because it came from that. So I don't understand why copying or replicating is a problem. And I know Mr. Kesh doesn't want us to do that because then maybe we lose some of our creativity in making a little change or making something else and discovering something new. I think he gives a
You are not adding
starting.
anything. You are not adding anything if you are copying.
I think you are. You have a starting point to work from. So I don't see copying as a problem. I mean, not
This
to
is what
leave
you
it,
like.
leave
This is
it
what
there,
you
right,
like.
right.
You are,
You
you
start
are
out,
right.
you remember when he said the cup of life, you said it exactly how I said it. So did you copy it or did you replicate it?
No, no, this is a different understanding because,
Okay.
yes, yes.
It's still a copy.
No, 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 no. Because this is have a lot of responsibility because it is attached to human life. That's why he didn't want anyone to mislead or to harm. And you know, in this teaching, this knowledge will not harm anyone. But you know, there is a lot of people which they just copying and then they will harm themselves without understanding. So he was very, very specific in that case, very specific, because it is a crucial, and all of us, knowledge seekers all over the places who are want to work with this Ganses for the benefit. That's why it must be restricted as he put it out.
Okay, so when you made the Magrev, did you copy it or did you decide to go in a totally different direction?
I went totally different.
Okay. How were the results?
And I no, I think I showed you your knowledge seekers. You was with me when I done it and I showed it. But it is it with my understanding now today, and this is what I tried for a long time. And you remember to make a practical workshop, and this is to make the real thing. But unfortunately, we didn't succeed with that.
Did we replicate a star formation or copy a star formation?
If you understand how to do, you can do.
I'm saying, but it's still a replication. I think it's just a starting point.
It is very easy to do that.
Mhm.
Just go and take a mono. It's not my teaching, it's Alex teaching.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Alex was speaking for about an hour or so.
Alex, it's the floor, it's yours.
We're just trying to draw the big fish closer to the shore.
No way, you know, I don't know. Maybe if Maria is there, she can do something like the last time.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to bring up something else, or if you want to stay on this topic, fine. It's a very nice box you have there. From Mexico, Lissy. No, she's from, Lissy's from Brazil, isn't she?
Oh, I am from Colombia.
Yeah, okay.
But I live in USA.
Okay, great. It is an international gathering and all are welcome, even those from the universal community, which are here as well.
You see, when I want to connect the irons, the metals, non-coated metals, I trust love. I observe nature. I go out when the sun shines, if I can, or when I see when the sun rises. You can see magnetical and gravitational in it. I see the love of babies for their mother. What's driving these babies regarding their mother? What's that urge? So I observe the trees. They're very beautiful these days. The flowers, how they grow, how they become bigger sometimes. I observe what happened that these flowers are so much more in this place than the other place. And when we observe the nature like that, we learn about gravitational, magnetical, love, the drive of universe, how the universe works. If you take away love and attraction, there's nothing left to stick together. And I trust to that. I try to trust to that and not to get away from that by lack of peace, fear, hatred, things like that, and go back again to truthfulness, goodness, and all that. So in trusting love in the whole universe and what works in all these phenomena in the nature, then it gives us the idea how we can work. Thank you.
Is there anyone here for the first time who'd like to tell us who they are and where they're from? I see a couple names I don't recognize in the list, but I don't want to really call anyone. But if you feel like opening your mic, if you're here for the first time, perhaps you can share something with us of who you are and where you're from. Patricia, did you want to say something? I see your mic is
Yes.
open.
Good
Great.
afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon.
I had an experience with the Cup of Life 1 last week. Yo tuve una experiencia con la Copa de Uno la semana pasada. I gave a spray bottle and a gallon of this Cup of 1 plasma to a person who had COVID in June last year. Yo le di una spray y un galón de la agua plasmática en la Copa de Vida 1 a una persona que había tenido COVID el año pasado, en junio. And he also has both vaccines. Él también tiene las dos vacunas. At the beginning, he was very incredulous. He wouldn't believe, like, he was, oh, you're crazy with these things. So he finally took one of these bottles. And the surprise was that he started spraying it one night. And he just called me and said, you want to get rid of me or what? I turned totally green. So fortunately, I was in class and I asked the
He was
participant
only
class.
kidding, wasn't he?
No, he wasn't kidding. He looked like Hulk.
Okay.
His face turned green. Then he thought it was only his face and his hands. And then he said, and then I look at myself and my whole body is green. And it was like this little, like, shaving cream type green, like little bubbles and things. And his whole body, especially two areas where he was complaining about his liver and his kidneys. And it took maybe like 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes for the green stuff to get away. And then he just washed off and sprayed again. And the next morning he woke up and he tells me, well, after COVID for a whole year, I had been having trouble getting off, like getting awake, and really lazy all day long without energy. And since he's been spraying this, he's been feeling a lot better. And he came for another bottle. So I guess it's working.
Very interesting. I've never heard
Yes.
this green color or bubbles or anything.
Well, what
like
they
that.
in the chat, we were actually in Liliana's chat, and I asked about it. I was also afraid at the beginning. I was like, am I really poisoning someone? And they told me it's got to do with the bilis, the liver.
The bile?
And that yeah, bile. And then he was getting detoxicated. It's like a detox process. And someone mentioned that something similar to that had happened in China, but these Chinese got like black color.
Well, that was from the interaction of the patients with the problem with the energy package, where it actually reverted them back to their originality, which was Africa. And I think they've asked Mr. Kesh to look into it, and I think he did. And there was it was put back into the right condition, but I'm not exactly sure. He did show us the pictures. And
It's a shame that he didn't take a picture of this. I guess he was pretty shocked with it. But nobody else has had this experience?
I don't know. Has anyone had any such experience or
I'll
heard
translate
of
into
it?
Spanish because
Thank you for your English and your translation. Beautiful.
thank you, Waco. Para la gente que no habla inglés, yo tuve la experiencia de una persona que usó la copa 1 y se puso todo verde, como un verde como del el material que uno usa para afeitarse. Y entonces le duró como unos 5 minutos y todo el cuerpo, especialmente las zonas afectadas, que era el hígado y el riñón. Y entonces estábamos en el chat con Liliana y entonces ahí me dijeron que era una desintoxicación del sistema biliar. Y al día siguiente la persona esa que se lo puso dice que por primera vez pudo recuperarse o volverse a sentir con energía desde que había tenido COVID hace un año. Y entonces le costaba levantarse en la mañana, estar activo durante el día. Y desde ahorita, desde que empezó a tomar esto hace como 10 días, se siente bien y no ha sentido molestias. Y algunas marcas también se le están desapareciendo. There's also mark, he's got some marks like the diabetic marks that you have in your skin are like brownish. So he has that in like under his belly part, and that is also disappearing.
Well, beautiful that it's disappearing. But again, we're not doctors. I was listening for the word verde. Isn't that green?
Verde is green.
Yes, I was listening for that in your
He
translation.
What was it? I
I
look
didn't
like
hear
Hawk.
it.
Oh, I said that before in the first translation.
Okay.
A los del grupo español, esa persona se volvió totalmente verde, como tipo la figura esa de Hulk. Y pues se le quitó como a los 5 minutos. Pero de ahí en adelante él se ha sentido bien y también se le están quitando unas marcas que tiene de la diabetes. Entonces eso le está desapareciendo también. De eso sí le pedí que me tomara una foto ahorita que comienza para ver dentro de un mes cómo se le pone. I asked this person to take a picture of those diabetes marks to see how they disappear in a month or whatever, to have like a before and after.
Well, the only other color I've heard of like this was Stefania when she went to the Mojan teachings and they went out for a break and she said she looked at her arm or her hand or the person that she was with and they were blue. And she looked at herself and she was also blue, I think. I think it faded, obviously, but it was a very different experience, she said.
And then they had sprayed?
No, they attended a meeting and a week or a seminar or a time with Mr. Kesh. And they went out for a break and she said her skin was blue, like the blue she said that you'd see with the Muppets. Something along that color blue. And she was wondering what had happened. So these aren't out of the normal, but there were no Gyan sprayed that I was aware of or anything, or she discussed, but it was just some sort of interaction that.
Actually, I wanted him to spray because he had COVID. So I said, there's a lot of after COVID things that are gonna be exposed to, like calcifications and things like that. So that's how I got him convinced to use it.
Right, where it breaks through. You're just having him use the cup number 2 from the waist down, following the protocol, or the rib down.
I still don't have the cup 2 gangs to create the plasma water. I'm working on that one.
But did you say that the same person had the vaccine administered later? Or was there a time period?
He had
Before.
COVID in June last year, and he had his vaccines like a month ago.
Okay, my mistake. Thank you.
And so then the time that you administered the cup 1 was when?
It was maybe like a month after he had his second vaccine.
So he was never treated prior to the vaccines.
And no, he had COVID, but asymptomatic. He just lost his smell and the taste, but he didn't need any oxygen or anything.
And so after the cup 1 was administered after the vaccines, that's when he turned green?
Correct.
And so does he show the psoriasis, that's the brown patches that usually comes from contact areas like with the waistband of your pant, high areas that have like a higher heat or friction?
Yeah,
Sometimes
that's the normal diabetic things.
Right.
Those things.
So,
And that is disappearing. Or it's getting lighter.
So what prompted what prompted the use after the vaccine? That's what I was curious about.
I'm his ex-wife.
Oh no, it's
he's the father of my daughter. So I said, well, you better stay well, because who's gonna have to take care of you later on in life is my daughter. So
well, I mean,
finally,
if he was past COVID, if he was past COVID, had the vaccines, was he still having issues with something other than the diabetic patches?
He felt the pain in his liver and in his riñones.
And so how's he doing now?
He's doing fine. He feels a lot better. He feels with a lot of energy. He doesn't, the liver doesn't hurt anymore. So I guess something's going on there.
Oh no, I was just curious. I was trying to get the time frame correct on how. I thought at first that he had been administered cup 1 prior to the vaccine.
No,
so I thought maybe
no.
he had been sorted at that point.
The first time he took cup 1 was a month after his last vaccine and a year after COVID.
So there wasn't any other outward signs of interaction with the vaccine other than the diabetic calcification type of patches of a psoriasis?
Yeah, like he's had that diabetic patches for a longer time before COVID and before that.
But overall, he's feeling much better. How is it?
In
how
a
are the
week,
emotions?
well, I don't know. I don't have that much contact with him.
Okay. I just thought you
but
kind
it
of noticed
seems,
his emotions have changed.
yes, it seems like my daughter tells me like he's a lot better, Mom, and so I guess he's doing fine.
Well, we know cup 1 helps with the emotions. That's one of the positive aspects of cup 1. Now I was just curious because we were looking at a newly identified ingredient that was in the vaccines called graphene oxide that has some issues. And I just wanted to see if there was any, if there has been no reaction with cup 1, then perhaps, or interaction, or maybe it's helped with that. I was just curious. And then I was hoping to speak to Mr. Kesh about his opinion on that newly discovered nanomaterial and whether there's, if it becomes an issue with the vaccinated, if there's a way to, if that's the energy pack that was really that we've all been worried about in the matter state, how we would go about continuing to de-energize it with the current GANs that we use, or are we already there with what we have?
If
I
Stephen,
could
if you
get you
go,
the name of the which vaccine he got.
if you go back to the Italian, when Mr. Kesh was a guest recently on the last Italian program, he spoke about graphene and he told us that it's in every cell of your body. It's in the brain. It goes from matter state back to a plasma state. And this is part of the, I didn't understand it completely, but this is the way it transfers, like between the synapses. It goes on and off all the time, from graphene to matter state or to plasma state.
But it's natural occurring graphene in our
Yes,
body.
correct.
No, but this is a synthetic graphene oxide
Yes. Mhm.
as a PEG nanolipid that was found. I was just curious at how a man-made synthetic would be different than a naturally occurring nanomaterial or from
Yeah.
natural sources.
We may want to avoid some of these medical things. Might be a wise idea just to avoid them so we don't have any issues, but very good, interesting questions. And I'll leave that up to the expert if you'd
Well, it's
like.
not medical, it's scientific, right?
Yeah, but
It's reality. I'm not.
Well, I guess that was my
doctor.
question, Mark. I heard you say something about the putting links in the chat in this. Was that you that said, don't put anything in the chat if it isn't pre-authorized?
No, I think Mr. Kesh was asking Solomia not to put any other websites or anything which could give us a problem. And this applies to every one of us, a legal or other sort of problems for the foundation. So we don't want to create any more.
Well, and then I thought I heard you say that means this, then you said something, unless you were on the tape.
This is, no, I said this applies to all of us.
Oh, no, I just wanted to mention that the chat that's currently running is private.
Okay.
It can't be seen by anybody
This
else.
is private, and it's a private experience. And the shot that he got was Pfizer.
Oh, you're referring to the vaccine?
The green person. Mhm.
Interesting point, though. I noted, I read an article where CVS has dropped the J&J offering. I guess they will not be carrying it, and CVS is quite a large, how many thousands of stores in the United States? They'll carry the other ones, but not the J&J, as I was reading. And of course, you have to verify so many things. You don't know where it came from, but it was posted somewhere.
No, my question was about the censorship that's going on. How do we know what we shouldn't talk about? I understand the links, but that's why I just meant that this chat in this group is private. It can't be seen by anyone else. It can't be recorded to it has to be downloaded separately, other than the live stream that's done on the through Rick, where it's, it shows the chat. You can see the chat and record it that way. I was just curious, what we can and cannot talk about. If, just as knowledge seekers, that's very disheartening that we can't talk about anything we want.
I think it'll come when the television station is fully released. Mr. Kesh will be able to say what he wants, but you can see it just talking about elections or anything else. You know what's going on in the social circles, right?
I know we're at war. That's why. And, to say such that we're at war with the CCP or we're at war with information and the technical platforms, does that lead in this private meeting? It's not an issue. It's only if it's recorded.
Can I come in, please?
Sure.
Good evening. Just avoid talking about it. It's as simple as that. Try to keep away from these things at the moment, and it's going to get harsher. We don't need to get involved. We understand it. We're all hopefully adults. We see the shackles of it. We have to be careful. That's all. It's self-consciousness more than anything else, and self-restriction for the time being. Now we see social media cuts everything, everybody off the way they want. Let me explain to you something very simple. You speak near your phone about a topic. Cancer, whatever, and watch how, if you go to YouTube, the suggestion of what to do with that cancer will come on your list to watch, the prime one as advertising in 5 seconds.
How peculiar.
No, it's not peculiar. They have put a voice recognition on everything. So imagine what you talk about, how it's listened to. It's not peculiar, it's a computer program set. You speak tomorrow, but I want to buy Bitcoin. And watch and go on YouTube. One of the first things as an advertising, 5 seconds comes, speaks about Bitcoin to you. And you are not near anything, you haven't used your phone is on the table, and you chat in the other room.
I was only being funny. I've experienced that myself. I guess Siri is listening.
Yeah. Siri is the biggest spy they have put in your phone. And all the programs. Just try it. Once could be coincidental, twice could be accidental, third time is must. So it's the same. You speak about, they put the programs in anybody's box, but something, they come to it. This was done like marshals years ago, in 1970s and 80s. Now it's very, very complicated and very sophisticated, and they do it. Each one of our voices has a fingerprint, and you speak that fingerprint, they listen to. They are interested when you come up. Even you put your phone somewhere, and somebody's phone is in his pocket and you talk. Even your laptop is on in a room and you think you got rid of your. So don't worry about how and what they would do after certain things, and keep away from it talking, or you become a point of interest.
That's why they say, I think, as a disclaimer, with the smart TVs, to be aware that they're collecting the visuals and the audio, well, not visuals, but
Visual,
images.
they do. They do.
And selling it to a third party.
I stayed in a hotel, and I noticed a block opened up, video recording. I put a sticker of Cash Foundation on it. The block moved to another position. At the end of it, the bottom of the screen was full of Cash Foundation stickers. You enter in a hotel nowadays, everything you do in your room is monitored. We automatically, when enter hotels, used to, and sometimes still do, just put a white towels over the whole screen, camera, televisions everywhere. They watch you, even if you are not if you haven't stayed in the very latest hotels, they even put the television in your bathroom to watch how you behave in the bathroom.
Yeah, Mr. Kesh, you're right. And the TV, you will see the sensor light blue. It comes out in the hotel. I usually put a towel over it.
They're just watching everything at the moment. Information, knowledge is information, and it's sold. And in most of hotels and accommodations, in public, your watch, even your mobile phone, are a camera for them. There is a program that, if you ever been around us, all our mobile phones are locked. The cameras are locked, television cameras are blocked. Your voices, nowadays when you say what can we say, what cannot be said, is there. I use a mobile phone when I want to talk, for them to listen what I'm thinking, what I want to do, and you see reactions on it. So don't put yourself at risk.
Well, my question was about a newly discovered nanomaterial that's been, been put out there, publicated. People are talking about it, and I just, I just was curious about what your opinion was.
What is it about? What is the nanomaterial? What is it made of?
Graphene oxide, a synthetic
What is a
PEG.
graphene oxide of what?
Well, that's the question. It's not really delineated on how it's created. It's just
no, oxide of what? Copper, zinc, iron, what?
Of graphene.
Yeah, graphene oxide. What does that mean?
A carbon?
Not necessarily. It's a CO2. CO2 in graphene state.
So is it a GANS?
It's energy pack. Graphene as a material. It's a three-dimensional gas, which is what they call it. Not necessarily what they call it. Graphene in what they call it shape is graphene. Creation of graphene is not what do you call it? Necessarily, it's the term they use any words loosely just to connect to something.
Is it allotropic, where it's structured?
I don't know. You have to see it, and it has to be analyzed.
Well,
graphene has become a new word to use to show it's very sophisticated. Is it graphene?
Well, we were trying to put the energy pack into a matter state dimension, because that's been this whole thing with this virus, is the energy pack or the matter state.
Let me explain to you something. Keshe Foundation is running very well controlled by medical teams, new technology. And the first trial has shown immediate effect. We're using a dimension of this. Most probably soon, in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we will see the outcome. It's actually built within the machine by a knowledge seeker. And it's been tested by doctors. Now it's going for the next phase of tests. We deliver a different structure into the body. It goes back literally to what I used to build 15, 20 years ago, but in a different structure. And now, are we delivering graphene, or are we delivering re-energized condition of the system? Hopefully by this Thursday or next Thursday, hopefully, we hope, Keshe Foundation will release a new product. Hopefully, if everything goes the way we think. And we deliver masks, breathing masks, that by using it, you can change the condition of the whatever, or even prevention of whatever. This is license, certificate, factory, and we are taking, hopefully, the controlling shares, and we go with it around the world. Even with those people who are infected using it, can prevent or can return, because we done, we tested.
Excellent.
It's part of the expansion of the Keshe Foundation.